The floor buffer hummed softly as James pushed it across the endless corridor. Its metal wheels squeaked every time he turned a corner, but he didn't mind. He had grown used to the noise in the past 12 years. The shine of polished tiles was a kind of quiet victory only a janitor could understand. Fleeting, often unnoticed, yet oddly satisfying. James was not just a janitor. He was a father, a single father, and the two small figures waiting at the end of the corridor made all the exhaustion in his bones worth it. They weren't human children. Not fully, anyway. Their skin shimmered faintly under the fluorescent lights, a pearlescent sheen that shifted depending on the angle. Their eyes, large, liquid, and faintly luminous, watched him with a trust that anchored his life. The twins, Lyra and Soren, were alien-born. They were also deaf. James still remembered the first time he'd held them. Tiny, fragile, their strange anatomy terrifying and fascinating at once. He'd been just a custodian at the Interstellar Academy when fate, or perhaps cruel chance, had dropped two parentless alien infants into his life. He hadn't known their language, their customs, or even what they ate. But he had known one thing. They needed someone and he couldn't walk away. Raising them had been a struggle that textbooks could never cover. He had spent nights studying alien physiology just to understand why they glowed faintly when frightened, or why they needed certain minerals dissolved in their water to thrive. He had invented hand signs with them long before he discovered that their species had an ancient, elegant form of sign language all its own. Over time, the three of them built a bridge of gestures, smiles, and unspoken understanding. Now, at 12 years old, the twins were curious and intelligent, though their world was quieter than most. They laughed without sound, argued with hands that moved faster than lightning, and loved fiercely. James often joked that his hands had aged twice as fast because of all the signing he did, but secretly, he treasured it. Communication with them wasn't a burden. It was the purest bond he'd ever known. Tonight was one of those rare evenings when his shift bled into their little family time. He had promised to help them with their science project after he finished the West Wing, but the twins had grown impatient. They sat cross-legged on the floor now, their small work table scattered with tools and glowing shards of crystal. Lyra looked up from their contraption, a crude little power relay, her pale fingers flashing quick signs. "You said you'd help. We've been waiting." Soren followed with a mischievous grin. "Signing, we're going to fail. You'll get fired for having stupid kids." James set the buffer aside and crouched down between them, his knees cracking. "First off," he said, exaggerating his lip movements, so they could read his mouth while signing along, "you're not stupid. You're smarter than me most days." His hand shaped the words as his lips did, his signs slower than theirs but clear. The twins exchanged a look and smirked. "Second," James continued, "no one's failing anything tonight. Let's take a look." He reached for the relay, pretending to study it with the seriousness of a starship engineer. In truth, he didn't understand half the alien tech they brought home, but he knew enough about wiring circuits and patience to guide them. As he carefully adjusted a crystal node, he felt the familiar weight of the day pressing down on him. His uniform smelled faintly of disinfectant. His hands were rough, his back sore. Other parents might return home from comfortable jobs, cooked dinner in bright kitchens, and tucked their children into beds warmed by family stories. But James had a small, plain apartment, meals made from whatever rations he could afford, and a constant worry gnawing at him. What if someone decided he wasn't fit to raise them? He pushed that fear aside as Soren tapped his shoulder eagerly, showing him a wire connection. James signed back. "Yes." "Good. Just twist it tighter." Lyra giggled silently, her hands fluttering. "You pretend to know, but you don't." James grinned. "Maybe," he admitted, mouthing the words slowly while signing. "But pretending works sometimes." For a while, the three of them sat in the corridor, lost in their little world of flashing crystals and silent laughter. It was moments like these that reminded James why he endured every insult whispered behind his back. The other staff at the academy saw only a janitor who had overstepped his place, daring to raise children not his own, children not even human. Some of the aliens looked at him with disdain, others with open hostility. But the twins didn't care about titles, species, or the politics of bloodlines. They cared that he was there, always there. The relay finally lit up with a soft, steady glow, casting the children's faces in shimmering light. Lyra's eyes widened, and she clapped silently, her excitement contagious. Soren threw his hands up in victory. James ruffled their hair, pride swelling in his chest. "That's teamwork," he said, both aloud and with his hands. For a heartbeat, everything felt right. And then he heard it, the sharp, deliberate click of heels against the polished floor. James stiffened, instinctively pulling the twins closer. The sound grew louder, echoing in the long, empty corridor. He turned and his breath caught. A figure approached, tall and commanding, draped in flowing garments that shimmered with threads of starlight. Her crown-like headdress glowed faintly, and her eyes, sharp, ancient, unreadable, fixed on the scene before her. The air itself seemed to bow to her presence. The alien queen. The twins froze, their hands lowering uncertainly. James's pulse thundered in his ears. He had seen her from afar once, during a grand procession. No one mistook her for anyone else. She was power incarnate, the ruler of a race far older than his own. And now she stood just a few steps away, watching a human janitor kneel on the floor, his rough hands guiding her kind's deaf children through a simple project. James swallowed hard, forcing himself not to shrink back. He could feel Lyra trembling beside him. Soren's hand crept into his, gripping tightly. The queen's expression was unreadable. Her gaze swept over the crystals, the children, then him. For a long, unbearable moment, silence reigned. James signed quickly to the twins, his hands trembling slightly. "Stay calm. Say nothing." But inside, a storm raged. What did this mean? Why was she here? And most of all, what would she do now that she had found them? The hum of the glowing relay seemed to grow louder in the silence, the only sound in a corridor suddenly heavy with destiny. The silence stretched until it felt like the corridor itself was holding its breath. James forced himself to stand, his knees stiff after crouching so long with the twins. He squared his shoulders, though his heart hammered in his chest. Instinct told him to bow, to lower his eyes like everyone else did when royalty passed. But another instinct, older, fiercer, kept him upright. His children were watching. If he bowed now, if he showed fear, what would that teach them? The queen moved with unhurried grace, every step measured, deliberate. Her robe whispered against the floor, leaving faint trails of light that shimmered and vanished. She stopped a few paces away, tall and severe, her gaze piercing. For a moment, James thought she looked at him the way others did, like he was nothing more than a man with a mop. But then her eyes lingered on the twins, and something flickered in their depths. Recognition? Anger? He couldn't tell. Lyra clutched his sleeve. Her free hand shaped frantic signs. Who is she? Why does she stare? Soren signed slower, his movements sharp, defiant. "We don't like her. Tell her to leave." James squeezed their hands, answering in quick gestures. "Quiet. Careful. She's important." The queen's voice broke the silence, deep, resonant, with a timbre that carried both command and sorrow. "So it is true." James stiffened. "What's true, your majesty?" His words came out rougher than he intended. He wasn't used to speaking to queens. Her gaze sharpened. "That two of my blood walk among humans. That they are raised not by kin, but by a janitor." The word cut sharper than any blade, but James didn't flinch. "They are my children," he said firmly, his voice steady even as he signed for the twins. "She doesn't understand." "But I do. You're mine. Always." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Yours? Do you claim rights you do not possess?" "They are my people. My line." James met her gaze without blinking. "They are of my heart. Blood doesn't tuck them in at night. Blood doesn't sit through endless hours of silence trying to learn a language that isn't his own. Blood didn't hold them when they cried. I did." For the first time, the queen's mask cracked. Her lips parted, but no words came. The twins shifted uneasily, watching the exchange without catching every nuance. Lyra tugged James's arm and signed quickly. "What is happening?" "She's angry with you." James signed back, his movement steady, even though sweat beaded at his temple. "Don't be afraid. I'll protect you." The queen's gaze softened barely. "They understand you?" she asked, curious now. James nodded. Better than anyone else. He crouched slightly, motioning for the twins. Show her. Lyra hesitated, then lifted her hands. With graceful, practiced movements, she signed. Father teaches us. He listens with his eyes. He knows us. Soren followed, quicker, sharper. He is our voice, our shield, our dad. The queen inhaled sharply. For a heartbeat, the regal stillness slipped, replaced by raw emotion. Her hands twitched at her sides, as if she wanted to reach out, but didn't know how. James seized a moment. You see? They don't need a throne. They need love. That's something I can give, even if I'm just a janitor. Silence again. Heavy, thick, but it was different this time. The queen's eyes softened with something like recognition or regret. You speak boldly, she said at last. Few dare stand before me so. James swallowed, signing as he spoke. When it comes to them, I can't afford to be afraid. The queen turned her gaze back to the twins. She studied their hands, their expressions, the way they leaned into James as though he were a fortress. Something in her posture shifted, the weight of command yielding to the pull of something older, kinship. Still, her voice carried the edge of duty. This cannot remain hidden. Their existence will shake more than you know. James's stomach sank. What do you mean? But she gave no answer. Instead, she straightened, her expression hardening once more. We will speak again, human. Guard them well for their sake and yours. And with that, she turned, her robe flaring behind her like a trail of stars. Each click of her heels echoed through James's chest until she vanished into the shadows at the far end of the corridor. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lyra was the first to sign. What did she want? James hesitated, then signed slowly. The truth. And maybe thus. The glow of the relay still pulsed faintly on the floor, but its light felt colder now, a fragile flame in the shadow of a storm that had only just begun. James barely slept that night. The queen's words echoed in his skull long after she disappeared into the shadows. Their existence will shake more than you know. He lay awake on a lumpy couch in their small quarters, staring at the cracked ceiling while the twins slept curled together on the only proper bed. He'd faced prejudice, mockery, even threats before, but this was different. A queen had looked him in the eye and acknowledged the children as her blood. That meant she could claim them. That meant the fragile family he had built could crumble with a single decree. By morning, his worst fear came true. 2 armored guards arrived at the janitor's quarters, their alien weapons gleaming, their expressions unreadable. Without explanation, they escorted him and the twins through gleaming halls James had only ever cleaned, not walked as a guest. He kept the twins close, his hands constantly brushing theirs in quick, reassuring squeezes. The chamber they entered was unlike anything James had seen before. Towering spires of crystal, walls alive with flowing light, a ceiling painted with constellations that seemed to shift as he moved. The queen sat upon a throne that pulsed faintly with power, her robe spread like a living tapestry. The twins shrank back, clinging to James. He signed to them, "Stay close. Don't be afraid." The queen's voice rang clear. "You may speak freely, human. This place hears all, and nothing leaves its walls without my will." James lifted his chin. "Then say it plainly. Who are they? What do you want from us?" Her gaze lingered on the twins. "They are mine, my blood, my kin, the last heirs of my line." The words hit James like a physical blow. He looked down at Lyra and Soren, their luminous eyes wide with confusion. He signed slowly. She says, "You are important, more than we thought." Soren signed back sharply, "We don't care. We're yours." Lyra added, "Always yours." The queen noticed. Her expression tightened. "You see? They cling to you. They know nothing of what they're meant to be." James bristled. "They know exactly who they are. Children, not pawns, not heirs. Children who need safety, not thrones." Her voice hardened. "Safety? Do you know how many would kill to seize them? How many factions already stir, whispering of lost heirs, of a bloodline that could unite or divide my empire?" James's mouth went dry. He thought of the whispers he had overheard in the Academy's halls, the disdainful glares. If word spread, the twins would be more than outcasts, they'd be targets. The Queen leaned forward. You cannot protect them, Janitor. You have no power, no army, no influence. What will you do when blades seek their throats? James's hands trembled, but he forced himself to sign as he spoke. I'll stand in front of them. I'll fight, even if I have nothing but my hands. Soren's eyes shone, and he signed fiercely. We'll fight too. Lyra added, together. The Queen's gaze lingered on the children. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her regal mask. They choose you, even knowing what you are not. James took a step forward, his voice low but steady. Maybe I'm not a king. Maybe I'm not one of your people. But I'm the one who stayed. The one who listened when no one else did. They're not deaf to me, your majesty. And I am not deaf to them. Silence stretched. Then, with a flick of her hand, the Queen dismissed the guards. Only she, James, and the twins remained. Her voice was quieter now, almost weary. If they stay with you, their lives will be hunted shadows. If they return to me, they will be safe, but strangers to themselves. This is a choice I must face. James's chest tightened. For the first time, he saw not just a ruler, but a mother or something close to it. A woman torn between law and blood, tradition and compassion. But before he could answer, the chamber doors slammed open. Figures clad in jagged armor stormed in, their banners marked with the crest of a rival faction. Their leader's voice rang out, cruel and eager. There they are, the heirs. The Queen hides them, but we will claim them. The bloodline belongs to us. The twins clung to James as a chamber filled with enemies, and he realized with a sinking heart that the Queen had spoken the truth. The danger was no longer a distant threat. It was here, and if he didn't act, he would lose everything. The rival soldiers fanned out, their weapons humming with deadly energy. The crystalline walls of the throne room reflected their jagged silhouettes, turning the chamber into a maze of sharp light and shadow. James instinctively pulled the twins behind him. His heart pounded, but his body moved before his mind caught up. He had no weapon, no armor, no training. But he had hands that knew how to scrub until skin bled, arms that carried children through sickness and storms, and were hardened by years of never giving up. The Queen rose from her throne, her presence radiant with fury. You dare invade my chamber? She thundered. The rival leader sneered. You hide heirs that belong to all. Queen, they will unite the empire, under us. The twins shrank against James's back. He signed quickly, stay low. Watch me. Trust me. Soren's hands flashed back. We're not afraid. Lyra added, we'll help you. Before James could protest, the first soldier lunged. Time slowed. James shoved the buffer-strong instincts of his janitor's body into motion, ducking, grabbing a dropped staff, swinging with the desperation of a father cornered. The weapon cracked against armor, buying a heartbeat. The twins scrambled, not to run, but to act. Their small hands moved in lightning-fast signs to each other, a silent language the enemies couldn't read. Together, they darted toward the fallen relay device they had built the night before. The crystals still glowed faintly. With quick, deft movements, they reconfigured it, their hands blurring in practiced coordination. Sparks flared. A pulse of light erupted, blinding the nearest soldiers. The Queen's eyes widened. They fight with wit, she murmured, almost to herself. James swung again, his arms trembling, his breath ragged. He wasn't winning, but he wasn't falling either. Each time he staggered, the sight of the twins kept him upright. Every blow he took felt worth it, as long as they were behind him. The Queen descended from her throne at last. Power rippled from her like a storm unleashed, and with a single gesture, she cast half the enemy force to their knees. Yet her gaze kept flicking back to James, the human janitor fighting with nothing but stubborn love. The rival leader snarled. You protect them now, but they are ours by right. James spat blood, gripping the staff tighter. They're not yours. They're not anyone's but theirs. His voice cracked, but his hands signed the words too, making sure his children understood every syllable. You belong only to yourselves. But to me, you're my everything. The twins cried silently, their eyes shining, but they didn't falter. Lyra slammed the relay into ground, triggering a shock wave that sent several soldiers sprawling. Soren darted forward, yanking James back just as a blade struck where his chest had been. The queen's patience snapped. She raised both hands, and the chamber blazed with raw energy. The rival soldiers screamed as a force hurled them out, slamming the great doors shut behind them. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. James collapsed to his knees, gasping. The staff clattered to the floor. The twins rushed to him, signing frantically, "Are you hurt? Are you okay?" He forced a smile, brushing their hair back. "I'm fine," he rasped, signing alongside. "You were amazing, both of you." The queen stood over them, her expression unreadable. But there was no anger now, only something far more dangerous. Respect. "You fought when you could have fled," she said softly. "You shielded them when even my guards faltered. And they chose to fight beside you, not behind me." James swallowed, still catching his breath. "Because I'm their father. Not by blood, not by law, but by choice. Every day." The queen studied the twins. Lyra reached out timidly, signing slowly, "We don't want a throne. We just want Dad." Soren added, his hands fierce. "He is our family. Always." The queen's gaze softened at last. Her shoulders, once rigid with command, lowered. "Then so be it," she said. "You are their father. Not by decree, but by truth." James blinked, stunned. "You mean that?" She nodded once, regal even in concession. "I will not take them from you. But know this, your family is no longer hidden. Enemies will come. Factions will scheme. Yet as long as I rule, none will touch them. This I vow." Relief crashed over James so hard his knees nearly gave way again. He pulled the twins into his arms, holding them as though the universe might vanish if he let go. They buried their faces against him, trembling with exhaustion and love. The queen turned to leave, her robe sweeping behind her like a river of light. But at the doorway, she paused. Without looking back, she said, "Janitor or not, you have shown more than some kings. Do not forget, the strength that binds you three is greater than blood, greater than throne." And then she was gone. James held his children tightly, whispering and signing the same words over and over. "You're safe. You're mine. Always." For the first time since the queen had walked into their lives, he dared to believe it might actually be true.